Recently, Mercedes-Benz officially withdrew from the shareholders of Shenzhen Tengshia Automobile, transferring its 10% stake to BYD. This marks the end of the 14-year collaboration between Mercedes and BYD in car manufacturing, and it also means that Tengxia is now a wholly owned subsidiary of BYD Group. Mercedes doesn't want to partner with BYD anymore. Is it because working with BYD made them lower their standards? Let me break it down for you. Last year, BYD made 30 billion yuan from selling cars, but they claimed to have spent 40 billion on research and development. Even though the cars released under the BYD-Mercedes collaboration sold well, Mercedes only owned 10% of the shares, which meant they didn't make a profit. Actually, they lost money. And to make things worse, they had to keep using the Mercedes brand for their cars. That doesn't make much sense, does it? So it's better for them to pull out. Based on her analysis, as market demand weakened, the partnership between Mercedes and BYD didn't bring in the expected profits and even posed risks to Mercedes' brand. Naturally, Mercedes decided to exit. According to Tianyancha, on September 14th, Shenzhen Tengxia New Energy Vehicle Company Limited underwent changes in shareholding and business registration. BYD Auto Industry Company Limited increased its shareholding in Tengxia from 90% to 100%, becoming the sole shareholder. Its registered capital also rose from 6.98 billion yuan to 7.76 billion yuan. Meanwhile, Mercedes-Benz China Investment Company Limited, which originally held a 10% stake, fully exited the shareholder list. Hans-Georg Engel, Senior Executive Vice President of Mercedes-Benz China, also stepped down from Tengxia's board of directors. From this point, Tengxia has transformed from a joint venture brand to an independent brand under BYD. In response to this change, Teng told Southern Metropolis Daily on the 16th that this would allow BYD to better integrate internal resources and optimize strategic planning. Media reports indicate that in March 2010, BYD and Mercedes' parent company Daimler signed a memorandum of cooperation. By February 2011, BYD and Daimler jointly established Shenzhen BYD Daimler New Technology Company Limited, each holding 50% shares, thus launching the new car brand Tengxia. The goal for Tengxia was to create a high-end Chinese electric vehicle brand. With the backing of these two industry giants, Tengxia grew rapidly in its early days. In April 2012, Tengxia's first concept car debuted at the Beijing International Auto Show, and by September 2014, the first mass-produced car, the Tengxia 300, was launched. Later, the Tengxia 400 and 500 models were also introduced. However, the early development of Tengxia faced challenges, as the new energy vehicle market wasn't mature at that time. According to data from the China Passenger Car Association, from 2015 to 2018, Tengxia only sold 11,774 cars in 4 years, far less than what some emerging brands now sell in a month. Reports suggested that Tengxia's early struggles were due to the very small market share of electric vehicles a decade ago. Tengxia's luxury positioning, with a price around 300,000 yuan, made it hard to attract consumers. Moreover, all Tengxia models were fully electric at a time when charging infrastructure was inadequate, leading to limited consumer acceptance. To address these issues, in 2019, Daimler took steps to transfer part of Tengxia's business to Beijing Benz Sales Company. This restructuring integrated Tengxia's sales, services, marketing, and network development into the Mercedes system, while maintaining independent product development and manufacturing. Afterward, Tengxia introduced the Tengxia X model, offering both fully electric and hybrid versions. Although the design aligned more with current electric vehicle trends, the model faced stiff competition from new emerging brands, and the Tengxia X lacked sufficient product strength and market competitiveness. Even when displayed in Mercedes showrooms, the Tengxia X couldn't compete with other brands. From the launch of Tengxia's first car in 2014 to 2021, the brand sold fewer than 30,000 units, whereas NIO alone sold over 20,000 cars in 2019. Poor sales directly impacted Tengxia's financial situation. Since its inception, the company has relied on financial support from its shareholders. From 2012 to 2021, BYD and Daimler injected capital into Tengxia 12 times, totaling over 7 billion yuan. According to BYD's financial reports, Tengxia's losses between 2016 and 2021 exceeded 4 billion yuan over 6 years. At the end of 2021, BYD announced that it had signed a share transfer agreement with Mercedes-Benz, restructuring the ownership of Tengxia. After the transfer, BYD held 90% of Tengxia's shares, while Mercedes retained 10%. From that point on, Tengxia's strategy and operations were mainly led by BYD, with Mercedes providing support. However, as demand in China's auto market weakened, luxury brands including BMW, Mercedes, and Audi engaged in aggressive price wars during the first half of this year. The price for electric vehicles were especially drastic. For example, BMW's i3, one of the models with the steepest discounts, saw its price drop from the original 353,900 yuan to half of that. The on-road price, which was around 250,000 yuan last year, fell below 200,000 yuan this year. The starting price for the BMW 5 Series gasoline car also dropped to around 310,000 yuan, roughly a 30% discount. Despite these massive discounts, sales did not see significant growth. According to sales data released by BMW Group, global deliveries in the first half of this year reached just over 1 million units, a 2.3% increase year-on-year. However, sales in China declined, with 375,900 units sold, including the Mini brand, down 4.2% compared to last year. According to BMW, the prices of Mercedes EQ series and Audi's e-tron series electric vehicles also saw major reductions at retail. Due to weak demand and the impact of their electric vehicle models, gasoline vehicles under the BBA brands, consisting of BMW, Mercedes, and Audi, have also been heavily discounted. For instance, the Audi A4L's base price dropped to below 200,000 yuan, while the price of the Mercedes C-Class hovered around 200,000 yuan, with discounts exceeding 100,000 yuan. Reports even suggest that each Mercedes C-Class sold results in a 70,000 yuan loss. According to data from the China Passenger Car Association, from January to May, the scale of price cuts for vehicles has already exceeded 90% of the total for 2023, surpassing the entire discount scale of 2022. Up to 59 models were discounted in February, March, and April. The Car Association's Secretary General, Cui Dongshu, commented that this level of discounting is astonishing from a historical perspective. Looking at the core indicator of discount percentages, the price reduction for gasoline cars surged, reaching a historic high of 19.7% by May this year. Coupled with further steep price cuts in June, many gasoline vehicles are now likely operating with negative gross margins. Cui Dongshu noted that while year-end price wars in China's passenger car market typically result in promotions about 4 percentage points higher than the previous year, the competition in 2024 has been exceptionally fierce. The promotional peak for new energy vehicles has risen by 7 percentage points and has established a pattern of continuous price cuts. The months-long price war in China's auto industry has not brought the expected market gains for foreign automakers. Instead, it has severely damaged their brand value. By July, with dealerships suffering heavy losses, the leading luxury car brands, Mercedes, BMW, and Audi, pulled out of the price war. A salesperson from a Mercedes-Benz dealership mentioned that they lose 70,000 yuan for every C-Class car sold, and this situation is unsustainable. Currently, Mercedes prices are relatively stable, and a price increase is expected soon. Furthermore, other international luxury brands have also experienced declining sales in China, with Porsche showing the sharpest drop. According to the latest data, Porsche delivered 155,900 vehicles globally in the first half of 2024, a 7% decline year-on-year. In China, however, deliveries totaled 29,600 units, down 33%, far exceeding the global average decline. Porsche explained that the decline was primarily driven by price-sensitive factors in the Chinese market. Data from Shanghai consulting firm Automobility shows that in the first half of this year, the market share of foreign brands in China's passenger car sales fell from 64% in 2020 to 38%. German automakers, which heavily rely on the Chinese market, have been particularly affected by this shift. The Financial Times attributes this to China's rapid transition towards electric vehicles. Mercedes-Benz saw a 9% decline in sales in China during the first half of this year compared to the same period last year. Mercedes-Benz CEO Ola Källenius acknowledged that the luxury market in China is cooling, attributing this slowdown primarily to China's real estate crisis. He openly stated, "We don't know how long it will take for Chinese consumers to regain their confidence." Behind the price cuts by luxury brands lies a reduction in market demand and growing pressure on dealership inventories. Surveys show that the inventory warning index for Chinese auto dealerships is above the critical threshold, indicating significant pressure. According to Voice of America, in recent years, Chinese-made vehicles, particularly new energy vehicles, have surged in popularity, seriously disrupting the dominance of foreign brands in the Chinese market. Not only have Chinese automakers taken market share, but they've also turned what was once a goldmine for foreign car manufacturers into a black hole of losses. Observers point out that the reasons foreign automakers are losing market share and experiencing losses go far beyond their failure to meet consumers' demands for low prices and high features. More importantly, factors include the Chinese government's policy of forcing foreign companies to trade market access for technology, growing nationalist sentiment among local consumers, intellectual property theft, and geopolitical tensions. Data from global automotive consultancy Dun Insights shows a sharp decline in foreign car sales in China in recent years. For example, U.S. automaker General Motors sold 4.1 million vehicles in 2017, but expected to sell only 1.8 million in 2024. South Korea's Hyundai dropped from 1.2 million sales in 2016 to an estimated 220,000 in 2024. Similarly, Germany's Volkswagen is forecast to sell 2.5 million vehicles in 2024, down from 4 million in 2017. In contrast, BYD, China's largest automaker, has grown its production from 420,000 units in 2017 to a projected 3.6 million in 2024. Foreign brands have also been losing market share. Between 2020 and 2024, Japanese brands fell from 16% to 12%, German brands from 19% to 16%, US brands from 12% to 7%, South Korean brands from 7% to 2%, and French brands from 3% to just 0.4%. According to the China Automobile Dealers Association, the market share of non-Chinese automakers in China dropped from 50% in July 2022 to 33% in July 2024. Some analysts predict that by 2030, the market share of domestic Chinese automakers will rise from 59% to 72%. The decline in sales and market share has directly led to foreign automakers moving from profitability to losses. Dun Insights reports that GM has lost over $200 million in China this year, marking its first loss in the country in 40 years. GM CEO Mary Barra pointed out that almost no automakers in China are turning a profit, calling the situation unsustainable. Ford has accumulated over $5 billion in losses since 2020, with sales dropping by 70% from their peak. Ford CEO Jim Farley remarked, "We've never seen competition like this before." In addition, Volkswagen, which has operated in China for nearly 40 years, also posted its first ever loss in the first quarter of this year. Founder and managing director of Sino Auto Insights, Tu Le, noted that it's not just traditional automakers like GM, Ford, and Volkswagen that are losing money in China. Many other companies are also struggling. Despite rising demand for new energy vehicles, the intense market competition and price wars have made it difficult for most companies to turn a profit. In recent years, the Chinese government has been promoting the development of new energy vehicles through financial subsidies and supportive policies. Since the beginning of these policies in 2010, we've seen the rise of numerous emerging car companies, such as BYD, Chery, Li Auto, NIO, and XPeng. According to the China Passenger Car Association, in the first half of 2024, BYD sold over 1.6 million vehicles, ranking first, while Chery followed with more than 1.05 million sales. Last year, BYD's total sales exceeded 3.02 million vehicles. Andrew Bergbaum, global co-leader in the automotive and industrial sector at Alex Partners, a global consulting firm, stated that the significant decline in profits and market share for foreign automakers in China is mainly due to the country's strong promotion of new energy vehicles and the rapid rise of domestic brands. He explained that the initial advantage foreign car companies had in China is now being replaced by local enterprises. U.S. expert on Chinese economic issues Gordon Chang pointed out that a key factor behind this shift is the Chinese government's desire to leave the domestic auto market to local companies. He noted that while foreign companies initially provided support in terms of technology and capital, China now possesses these resources and no longer needs external help. The most important factor, he said, is the Chinese government's attitude. Chang added that it's clear that Chinese companies eventually caught up, and this was largely due to the Chinese government's backing. He also noted that there has been some theft of U.S. intellectual property. All these factors combined have led to faster-than-expected growth for Chinese companies. Clark Packard, a researcher in international economic policy at the Cato Institute, a Washington-based think tank, also pointed out that U.S. companies entered the Chinese market by exchanging technology, equipment, and management, which, although somewhat forced, was still a business decision. He emphasized that this cannot be compared to China's theft of trade secrets and state-led hacking attacks on U.S. business networks, the latter being far more serious and malicious. He further noted that Chinese companies like BYD received substantial subsidies from various levels of the Chinese government, which is a major issue for U.S. companies. BYD's production costs are 25% lower than those of other global competitors, thanks to these subsidies. Tu Le, founder and managing director of Sino Auto Insights, stated that since 2009, the Chinese government has been pushing for the development of clean energy vehicles. Some statistics indicate that over the years, the Chinese government has invested hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies, tax reductions, and research and development. However, he emphasized that despite all these subsidies, the performance of China's electric vehicle sector has not been stellar. One of the catalysts for China's rapid EV growth, he noted, was Tesla's entry into the market in 2014, followed by the establishment of its factory in 2019. Tu Le said, "If you look at where the hockey stick effect in EV sales happened, it was in 2020. That year was also when the first Model 3 rolled off the line at Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory. So you can pour a lot of money into the industry, but you still need foreign automakers to catalyze these sectors. Unfortunately, in my view, this created the giant we see today." Aside from the Chinese government's forced technology transfers and heavy subsidies for new energy vehicles, geopolitical factors and rising nationalist sentiment are also increasingly influencing consumer behavior. These factors were believed to contribute to the loss of market share and the financial losses experienced by traditional Western automakers in China. Packard of the Cato Institute believes that as Chinese citizens have increasingly heard governments from the US, Europe, South Korea, and Japan attempt to contain China's growth and in some ways restrict it, nationalist sentiment in China has risen. As a result, consumers tend to favor Chinese brands. This growing preference for domestic products is partially driven by nationalism, with Chinese manufacturers buying and selling Chinese-made goods. For any business, especially large multinational automakers, losing market share and suffering huge losses without being able to regain their position makes it difficult to continue operating. Companies must innovate, cut costs, and, in some cases, lay off staff to stay afloat. Some analysts predict that China, once seen as a paradise for growth and profit, is now gone forever. Foreign automakers, who reaped huge profits in this market, might exit China within the next 5 years, or even sooner. Chang believes that eventually, U.S. car companies will have to come to terms with the fact that as long as the Chinese Communist Party remains in power, there will be no space for Ford, GM, or even Tesla to survive in China. This is something U.S. companies may find hard to accept, but he sees it as the only realistic solution, to leave China and minimize their losses. Chang concluded with a warning: never trust the Chinese Communist Party.